Alcohol, the root of all evil. Welcome, sinners, as we discuss how this city of ours got so thirsty and who is responsible for giving baby his bottle. They say wine before beer, sick for a year. We're all just going to have to hope we have enough paid off time because I'm getting into the wine first. Give me a bottle opener.
I'll struggle with it in front of my girlfriend.
I'll push the cork in and it'll be fine. No one will know the difference.
I kind of like that taste of chunks in my wine.
Chunky.
Ooh, floaters.
Oh, I can feel fingerprints. Taste fingerprints, Daniel. You taste fingerprints.
That's what the LAPD hired you to do. Taste fingerprints.
You got to sniff out crime and taste the evidence. Wine was the first form of alcohol to come to Los Angeles. And I'm not talking about...
Wine like everybody does when they come out of town and they see traffic.
Wine like the classic refrain, traffic, comma, am I right? So wine was the first form of alcohol to come to Los Angeles. I tried finding out what sort of alcohol the natives in the area might have had. Nothing. I couldn't find anything, but I know they're hiding something. And someday I'm going to find it.
They had that one thing that they were getting all messed up on, but I forgot what it was.
Coca-Cola.
Yep, that's what it was. It was cocaine within Coca-Cola.
Cocaine cola.
I was going to say just do it. I'm like, that's not right.
Coca-Cola.
Just do it.
As we discussed in our episode on the missions, refer to Padre issues and be wowed at our podcasting capabilities, the Spanish missionaries brought vine clippings from Spain to the San Gabriel mission in 1769, and the huge vine that grew out of these was known as the Viña Madre, mother vine.
Mother vine.
My mother the vine. Why would a bunch of uptight Padres need their own wine vine? Well, apparently the local grapes that grow mostly as weeds in the wild around here weren't good enough for them. They needed tried and true grapes from the motherland so that they could make sacramental wine for their services. And I'm not talking about the capital of California. Padre needs his bottle. So this vine grew strong, and come 1781, when it was time to found El Pueblo, the pobladores brought clippings from the Madre with them so they would have wine for themselves, and they didn't have to travel the 10 miles to go get some from Daddy.
That's a long trip. Not everyone's coming back.
No.
From that wine trip.
And they might not come back the same religion either. Most wine was still being used for religious purposes, but in the mid-1790s, a guy named Jose Maria Verdugo planted the first secular vineyard in all of California on his Rancho San Rafael.
Non-religious wine. Oh my God.
Oh, it tastes like devil juice. The devil's gym bag, which is the name of my favorite B movie.
So the devil's towel.
Will someone tell the devil to clean up his sweat after he gets off the Stairmaster? Stairmaster to hell. So this
what level of descent do you want to be set at?
Burn baby burn, or eternal damn these love handles. I got there.
Hate handles.
This was in Rancho San Rafael, which is located on what is now downtown Glendale. Yeah. And that's why the Americana parking lot still smells like grape pits.
That's what it is?
Yeah, grape pits.
I hope that was a Yelp review you read that from. Grape pits.
The wonderful Yelp reviews of the Americana parking lot. I guess I parked. This first style of wine being made in LA, since it was made of grapes coming from the mother vine at San Gabriel, was known as Angelica, the wine of the angels. This is a type of wine that no longer exists, but apparently the Galliano winery in Mira Loma sells a close reproduction of it known as Ancient Angelica. If you care to taste the communion wine of 3 centuries ago, you can go there and try some, which apparently was just like sweet and gross. It tastes like conversions. Something also worth mentioning is the giant vine that hangs over Olvera Street. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, if you can take your eyes off of the little turtles that have wagging heads that they're selling. This vine comes out of the courtyard of the Avila Adobe and stretches over the marketplace, giving it a sort of a jungle roof. Yeah. Modern tests of this vine and the few grapes that it still does produce show that it's a hybrid species of a native species of grape, but also of the first generation of the Viña Madre of San Gabriel, which suggests that this vine was planted around 1818 when the Avila Adobe itself was made, which makes this vine that hundreds of about to get food poisoning tourists walk under every day, ignoring. This vine is older than the state of California itself. Wow. Wow. It's not clear whether it was used for actual winemaking or just for shade, but it is clear that it's the reason that Olvera Street used to be called Calle de los Viñas.
Oh, okay.
Vine Street. But still, San Gabriel was the biggest wine producer in town. By 1820, they had some 150,000 vines, making it the most extensive vineyard of all the California missions. But once Mexico took over in 1821 and they started divvying up the land of the missions to give to their friends and family, the vineyards in LA were mostly destroyed. There were a few early Mexican grape growers such as Tiburcio Tapia, Ricardo Vejas, and Thomas Yorba, but they were all working small scale grape pits, nothing. The first American grower on record in LA was Joseph Chapman, who planted 4,000 vines in 1826, but still nothing was being made on the same scale as what was going on at San Gabriel in its blood of Jesus guzzling, native culture obliterating prime. But as their official policy on that matter goes, no sour grapes. And that's been L.A. Minkley.
That's what we do here at L.A. Minkley.
We take down things that have been taken down a long time ago. We offend no one. Kid Gloves. Kid Gloves, the podcast.
I don't remember the name of the inflatable gloves that kids, it was commercial.
Incredible. Oh, what were those called? Not Rock'em Sock'em.
No, it's not
What were
that.
those
It was,
called? Hit your sister without your parent knowing gloves?
yeah, that's it. Leave no marks.
But then, for the first time in recorded history, the French came to the rescue. The reason LA was so vulnerable to a French influence was because California being owned by Mexico, the Mexican government, in a ridiculous precursor to Donald Trump, didn't want troublemaking immigrants coming into their country, so they only invited Catholics from countries sympathetic to Mexico, like France.
Okay.
This and a stagnating wine scene left a baguette-shaped void that got filled by a man named, the only name that the person destined to save the LA wine industry could be named, Jean-Louis Vigne.
Ah, yeah. That was his only credential.
Well, I'm
Have you
it.
seen my name?
Winemaking's my name and winemaking's my game.
And it's also my name. Did I say that already?
Here's my credentials. It's my birth certificate. So this guy, Vigne, he was born in 1780 in the Cadillac of France. Cadillac, France.
I bet it sounds a lot better in French.
Nope. Once he grew up and after some stints in Monterey and the Sandwich Islands, which must sound better in French, he came to LA in 1831. Vigne, I'm sure I'm pronouncing his name wrong. That's how you would pronounce it in French, but I don't know how would you say that name?
I would say it just as it's spelled, which is always wrong.
Vignes.
Yeah, Vignes.
Vignes, get in here.
Yeah, I'm sure Vignes, right?
Vigne. Let's just call him Vigne.
All right.
Vigne Polywog.
Someone wants to correct us, then, they love doing that.
So Vigne, by nature of his last name or his country of origin, became interested in the growing of wine grapes, but found that the situation he found himself in LA was lacking. In 1833, LA only had 6 wine growers spread out over barely 100 acres, growing 100,000 wine vines. Mm-hmm. It's wine bottles popping out of the ground. That's how it happens.
Pick the bottles.
What they had in 1833, that was less than what San Gabriel alone had going on in its prime. So that same year, Vigne bought 104 acres. He didn't bring 104 acres of land like Dracula.
Get a loaf.
I must sleep in the mother dirt. All 104 acres of it. I had to take Paris.
They just let it go.
As the song in the future will say, he bought 104 acres of land to start a vineyard of his own, making it the first large-scale, non-religious winery in California. Large-scale, that is. The land he bought was located near what is now Union Station at Alameda, just south of Aliso. What's that? Aliso, you say? Well, shut up, because this isn't an interactive podcast, so you can pause and say that. But here's why it's called that. There had been a giant sycamore tree growing in that area for over 100 years at that time that had been an important gathering spot for the Keech tribe living in the native city that existed before LA plopped on top of it, Yang Na. The tree was 200 feet wide and 60 feet tall and provided this huge shade that, like, if there was a meeting, like, yeah, we're going to the tree. The Spanish word for this type of tree is aliso, which is why Vigne named his new winery El Aliso, and why he himself came to be known around town as Don Luis del Aliso.
Okay.
Which I hope to one day be a Don in this city. A new Don. A red Don. Take note, LAPD. Don Red Dawn is coming. But Vigne had a problem with the mission grapes that were pretty much the only viable species of grape around. Since they were only used for church services, they weren't very complex of a flavor. It was just like a Welch's, wet and red. They just tasted sweet, like I said. So to remedy this, in 1833, he became the first person to import European vines other than the original mission vines into California. He brought in clippings from the Bordeaux region of France with varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Sauvignon Blanc. So he brought those to California. He did this in an effort to diversify the types of wine being made in LA and to make them the new dominant grape in the area over the mission grape, which had been so entrenched for so long.
Yeah.
Even better, he would be the only provider of these new varieties of grapes. Sense. Even better, since the climate in LA is so similar to that of many parts of France's Mediterranean climate, the new grapes loved it. They hadn't turned into California raisins yet. They were just California grapes, and they were loving it.
Get a load of this.
I'm not wrinkly yet, but I still have sunglasses. Vigne even went so far as to start inviting his family to come move to the area because he predicted that someday California would rival France in quality of wine production. He even went so far as to write the screenplay to Sideways.
You should have seen my face of
Yeah.
excitement and confusion.
Ooh, movie trivia.
I'll say that at a party where we're drinking wine.
Mission wine, Sacramento wine. That's the kind of party I go to. It apparently takes time to get a vineyard fully operational if you're going to, like, from clipping. So it wasn't until 1837 that El Aliso actually started producing wine, but when it did, it was quality stuff. Vigna cared about making the best wine possible so much that this is crazy, he would regularly send bottles of his wine on like cruises from LA around Cape Horn to Boston and back before he sold them, I guess, to age them properly and make sure they don't get seasick. Apparently this was common practice at the time, which, as all
Rocking
things,
a baby to sleep?
just I don't get it. I guess maybe they think like, well, that's the perfect amount of time it would take for the wine to mature. We'll just like set a timer.
Yeah, exactly.
There's calendars.
Look at that sundial. What are you doing?
This is why global warming exists. Nonetheless, people were appreciative of his dedication and could definitely taste his superiority, which was on the bottle, taste my superiority. By 1839, Vigna had over 40,000 vines. Weird. There's a word that I changed things and it just says Pedro there. That's 40,000 vines, Pedro.
I think I'm having a stroke in Spanish.
By 1839, Vigna had over 40,000 vines, and in 1840 made the first ever recorded shipment of California wine. By 1842, he was supplying Santa Barbara, Monterey, and San Francisco with shipments out of San Pedro. There it is. Since there were no secular vineyards in those areas at that time. The El Aliso wine was of such superior quality that it was there during treaty signings and feasts between the natives and Mexican and American leaders. It was served when William Tecumseh Sherman came to town. It was sent as a gift to U.S. President John Tyler. It was even drank. Here's our first connection of the night. It was drank during, It was drank during the peace meeting between American Commodore Thomas Jones and Mexican Governor Manuel Mitchell Torina in 1843.
Oh, okay.
That's what they were drinking.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Look
isn't
at
that interesting?
That is.
El Aliso soon became the biggest winery in the world, putting out 150,000 bottles a year. And then there were the imitators. A wilderness man and explorer named William Wolfskill, who we've mentioned briefly in the past, and I know we'll get to in an episode coming up in a couple of months because I know what we're doing. Yeah. He was given a plot of land by the Mexican government right next to Vignas in 1838 at what is now Alameda and 3rd, and he took it upon himself to start growing wine grapes also. He had some 55,000 vines over 145 acres and was the only real competition Vigna faced, producing almost 3,000 gallons of wine a year. Yeah. He's also considered one of the 3 most important men in California wine history, but he eventually lost interest in wine, and by the time he died in 1866 was mostly focused on a curious citrus you all might learn about real soon, the Noble Orange.
The Noble Orange. Orange.
We're going to peel that story. The Norange. The finest hybrid of orange and nobility. By 1841, 24,000 gallons of wine were being made in LA, and the gold rush up north during that decade just increased the demand for wine further, and since there weren't many vines up north yet, LA had to step up its game. By 1850, LA had over 100 vineyards, most of them along the LA River, and in particular around the Pueblo. In the 1840s, an Italian named Antonio Pelonconi started the first winery on what is now Olvera Street in the conveniently named Pelonconi House.
That sounds way familiar.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Full House.
I'm thinking of Pensacola, Florida.
But by 1850, when there were a little over 100 wineries in town, 85 of them were in the Pueblo. So most of them were there. In comparison, all of Northern California at this time had about a dozen wineries.
Wow, really?
Yeah, we were way ahead of them.
Oh, they're a bunch of suckers.
Yeah, they were all doing beat poetry or something. But the demand for minor 49ers wanting to get drunk so bad up north did spark the beginning of a shift out of the south to the north to make it easier to meet the demand. The 1850s brought some major changes to the California wine scene, though. This was when a Hungarian exile named Colonel Augustin Haraszti de Moquesa set up shop at the Buena Vista Winery in Sonoma and brought with him cuttings from 165 of the best European vineyards in his crusade to increase the wine quality and variety in California drastically and to get rid of the dominance of the Mission grape once and for all. People just hated that Mission grape. His efforts paid off, and as a result, he is now considered the father of the modern California wine industry, but his scheming also helped speed up the exodus of vineyards out of LA. Back at home, the era of Vignas came to an end when in 1855 he sold his vineyard to his nephews, Jean-Louis Vigna
and Huey.
That's his name. And Dewey and Louis. Yeah, I guess they had the same name. Same name. You got
What's
the same
the
name.
The same name?
You got the same name as your uncle. So it was Jean-Louis Vigne and Pierre Saint-Savin for $42,000, making it the biggest real estate sale in LA history at that point. In 1857, the demand for wine was so high that the LA vineyards started planting vines in Anaheim. They had to degrade the grape.
What? Grapes and oranges in the same area.
There were no oranges yet. I'll get to that.
Oh my God! I can't wait. Tell me now.
There's oranges. So they started planting in Anaheim.
I'm
back. The guy who's dubious about your relations with your uncle. So eventually they also spread into San Bernardino and Riverside because they were running out of room. And by 1858, 500,000 gallons of wine were being made in LA. And over the years, that number just kept going up, making LA the undisputed wine capital of California. But as with most things involving a lot of alcohol, there was a downfall. The Vigne nephews had started branching out more in their alcohol production and were making Madeira wine and brandy and wine bitters.
Oh no.
But then they decided to get bold and stick their hands in the bubbly.
Champagne.
The first person credited with making champagne or sparkling wine, since it's not from Champagne region of France.
We have to talk down to these people.
So the first one making that in LA was Benjamin D. Wilson, but when these two nephews decided to try it, they had no caves to store their bottles in, and LA was too hot for such carbonation, so all the bottles exploded. Which drove them into serious financial troubles. Like, it's so silly. But
Like, it's funny that something so celebratory is they're panicking about.
break open the bottles.
Oh no!
It's a bad thing. So it was so serious that it eventually led them to sell the winery in 1874. To who they sold it, I will get to soon. But for now, that was the end of Vigne's vines. Then in 1882, Southern California's, sorry, I almost called it Southern Cali's. Everybody, get on the Venga bus. So 1882, Southern California's vineyards were hit with a plague that became known as Anaheim disease, which completely blighted the
And it
vineyards.
never ended.
The way you could tell a vine was suffering was if the grapes started developing frosted tips and an unquenchable taste for carne asada fries.
All these grapes taste like Mountain Dew.
Coca-Cola do the do. Many of the vines had to be removed and got replaced with the vine of the future, citrus groves. That's where. That's when they started coming in, and with that,
The cure to Anaheim disease.
Orange juice. Just take some orange juice. And with that, the LA wine industry was just a shell of its former self and was well into its transition to Northern California, where it now is today. But a last word on Vignes himself. His efforts with his winery made LA the birthplace of commercial winemaking in the New World. He turned it into a large-scale business, and for that he's seen as the founder of the California wine industry, despite what the Hungarian exile may be. And for that, he is the Vigne of Vigne Street.
That goes through what? Trenton?
Yeah, it goes right by where his winery was.
Okay.
That's where it was. That's what founding an industry gets you, a weird street in a strange part of town. That's all you get.
It's not strange. It's odd.
It's not strange. It's deadly. Vigne went on to die in 1862.
Speaking of.
He's buried at Evergreen Cemetery in East LA.
Oh, okay.